A necklace goes missing, a name is whispered, and a legacy is put on trial. When two cops wrongfully arrest a 72-year-old black schoolteacher at a glittering art gala, they think they're silencing resistance. What they don't know, she's not alone. She's the mother of the most decorated Green Beret alive. And within 72 hours, their system of power, greed, and silence begins to collapse. This isn't just about one arrest. It's about a war for history, home, and dignity. Stay tuned, because what unfolds next will shake a city and expose how justice can strike when least expected. Westwood County had always worn its contradictions like a faded coat, heritage on one sleeve, hypocrisy on the other. On a warm spring evening, the Westwood Fine Arts Gallery buzzed with elegance. Pearls clinked against crystal. Laughter echoed through high ceilings. And in the center of it all stood Martha Johnson. At 72, Martha carried herself with a kind of grace that couldn't be bought, earned only through decades of unwavering dignity. A retired teacher who had molded minds across generations, she had come to support her former student, James Turner, whose artwork now lit up the gallery walls with vibrant colors and ancestral pride. But amid the chatter of socialites and the flash of camera lights, something darker stirred. In a corner of the room, Charles Remington watched. The billionaire developer with a politician's smile and a predator's patience. He didn't see a grandmother or a community elder. He saw real estate. Opportunity. Obstruction. Martha's house, her Victorian relic standing proudly in the Heritage District, was the last unbought property in a neighborhood he aimed to demolish for luxury condos. Every family had caved. Every soul had moved or been forced out. Except her. Remington didn't believe in resistance. He believed in leverage. So when the gallery's prized Callaway diamond necklace was reported stolen, the trap snapped shut. Whispers began. Fingers pointed. And within minutes, two uniformed officers arrived, not to investigate, but to accuse. Officer Crow stood tall and cold. Officer Payne, twitchy and eager. They walked past the champagne, past the art, past the truth, and stopped in front of Martha Johnson. "We've received reports that you were seen near the necklace before it went missing," Crow announced, his voice loud enough to draw eyes. Murmurs swept through the crowd like wildfire. Martha stood firm. "That's impossible. I was with James Turner the moment I walked in." James stepped forward to defend her, but was quickly silenced. "Sir, step back," Payne barked, hand brushing the grip of his taser. Then came the handcuffs. Metal cold against decades of service. Martha didn't resist. She didn't shout. She simply straightened her spine and looked them both in the eye. "You're making the worst mistake of your lives," she said calmly. As she was led out in front of flashing cameras and watching guests, some recording, some whispering, none stopping, the air outside turned electric. What Remington didn't expect was that this wasn't a fall from grace. It was the ignition of something far bigger. Inside the police cruiser, Martha sat silent, her hands bound but her will intact. She wasn't thinking of the charges or the cameras. She was thinking of one thing, and one person. Her son, Master Sergeant Elijah Johnson. 4,000 miles away and trained to break nations with strategy and silence. Tonight, he would receive her call. And the reckoning would begin. Thousands of miles away, under a moonlit desert sky, Master Sergeant Elijah Johnson sat at a steel table, his boots dusty from a day of training, his eyes focused on mission briefs he'd read 100 times. Around him, his elite unit moved like shadows, quiet, efficient, disciplined. When the secured line rang, everything stopped. Only 3 people in the world had that number. And only one would call at this hour. "Johnson," he answered. "Elijah," his mother's voice came through, low but steady. A mother's voice always knows how to cut through the noise of war. "I need you," she said. He sat up straighter, his breath held for a second. "Where?" "Westwood County Police Department. They've arrested me. For theft." "What?" His voice dropped an octave. His men looked up from their tasks, alert, focused. "It's a setup," Martha said. "It's about the house. Remington. He's behind it all." There was a long pause on the line. Not from hesitation, but calculation. "I'm coming," Elijah said, standing. His voice was calm, but behind it was a thunderstorm. "I love you, son. I love you too, Mama. Don't say another word to anyone. I'll be there by morning." He ended the call, already in motion. His team didn't need details. They recognized the look in his eyes. The mission had changed. David Wilson, a former JAG officer turned Special Forces operator, closed his laptop. "I'll handle legal." Marcus Taylor, cyberops and digital infiltration expert, started packing. "I'll dig into everything: Remington's records, the gallery's security footage, police communications. If there's a digital trail, I'll find it." Elijah grabbed his black duffel bag and looked out the window, the stars overhead unshaken. "We move now." Within an hour, a private jet lifted from a classified airstrip, bound for Westwood. 3 men aboard, each lethal in his own right. But tonight, they weren't coming as soldiers. They were coming as protectors, as sons. Back in Westwood, Martha sat alone in an interrogation room, her hands still cuffed, her posture straight. She had been offered water. Declined. She had been stared at. Unbothered. The officers outside were laughing. Joking. Watching the clock tick down. They didn't know who she'd just called. And that was their mistake. In the control room, Officer Payne leaned back. "Bet she'll crack by morning. Old lady like that. This kind of pressure. Easy pickings." Detective Carter, a veteran in the department who had once served with Martha's late husband, passed by, heard the comment, and paused. He looked through the one-way mirror at the woman in the chair. "Martha Johnson," he muttered, almost to himself. Then his eyes widened with sudden recognition. "Oh God," he whispered. He turned to the young officers. "You boys have no idea what you've just done." Because by the time the sun rose over Westwood, the most decorated Green Beret alive would be walking through their front door. And he wouldn't be knocking. At exactly 7:42 a.m., the jet touched down on the private tarmac of Westwood Regional Airport. Elijah stepped off first, a towering presence in civilian clothes that couldn't hide the soldier beneath. Behind him were David and Marcus, calm, focused, silent. No security detail, no press, no fuss. Just purpose. Waiting on the tarmac was Jeff Parker, an old friend of Elijah's father and former Marine, now a private security consultant. He shook Elijah's hand firmly. "Heard what they did to your mother. I told my wife last night, Remington picked the wrong family." Elijah nodded once. "She's strong. But this crossed a line." "Let's get you into town," Parker said, opening the door of a black SUV. As they drove, Marcus worked on his laptop, eyes flicking across screens faster than the average man could read. "I've already pulled the gallery's surveillance logs. Someone scrubbed the footage from exactly 8:10 to 8:32 p.m., the time of the so-called theft." "Who?" Elijah asked without looking up. "Still tracing the IP. But guess whose name keeps showing up in the metadata linked to the gallery's security vendor?" "Remington," David said, almost flatly. Marcus nodded. "And the same vendor does side work for the police department. This isn't sloppy. It's coordinated." David's phone buzzed. He read the text and grimaced. "Local judge has already signed off on denying bail. They're trying to keep her locked up until Monday. By then, her reputation will be dust." Elijah's jaw flexed, but his voice was steady. "Then we'll bring sunlight into this room." They pulled up to the Westwood County Police Department just after 8:15 a.m. The parking lot was already crawling with reporters, camera crews jostling for position. Someone must have leaked the story: an elderly woman arrested at an elite gallery event, accused of grand theft. Clickbait gold. As Elijah stepped out of the SUV, every camera swiveled toward him. No one recognized him yet, but they would soon. Inside the station, conversation stopped. Officers turned, stared. The air grew thick. Elijah walked to the front desk, eyes steady. "I'm here to see Martha Johnson. I'm her son." The young officer behind the desk blinked. "Visiting hours don't start until—" "I'm not here for visiting hours," Elijah said, his voice low but unarguable. "I'm here because my mother was falsely arrested." Before the officer could respond, Officer Crow stepped into the lobby. The same cop who'd slapped cuffs on Martha like she was some hardened criminal. He recognized Elijah instantly, but not from reputation. From presence. "I'm Officer Crow. You got a problem." Elijah stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "You arrested my mother with no warrant, no evidence, and you let a camera crew watch it happen. Now you're going to let me see her. Or we'll have a bigger problem." Crow swallowed, but didn't move. That's when Chief Henderson entered, flanked by his sergeant. He extended a hand to Elijah, stiffly. "Mr. Johnson, let's talk in my office." As they disappeared down the hallway, whispers rippled through the station like a rising wind. "Martha Johnson's son. Elijah Johnson. The Green Beret. Oh damn." Behind a locked door, Martha looked up from her bench as the click of boots echoed toward her cell. She smiled softly, as if she already knew. "My boy's here." And now, everything was about to change. The door to the holding cell creaked open slowly. Martha Johnson looked up from the bench, her posture composed, her dignity untouched despite the cold walls around her. And there he was, Elijah. Not in uniform, not surrounded by weapons or fanfare. Just a son. Her son. And the storm he carried in his silence was enough to shake empires. She stood. No rush, no drama. "I knew you'd come," she said. "Always," Elijah replied, his voice low. Behind him, Officer Payne fidgeted near the wall, clearly unsure whether to intervene. Elijah turned to him, eyes cold. "Remove the cuffs." Payne hesitated. "She's still." "Elijah Johnson," Chief Henderson's voice echoed from the hallway, "just made it very clear we're not doing anything further without proper procedure." He turned to Payne. "Take them off." With a shaky breath, Payne did as instructed. The clink of metal falling to the floor was sharper than it needed to be. Elijah took his mother's hand and helped her sit down again on the bench. "We have about 10 hours, he said. "That's how long they think they've bought. By Monday, they plan to have your reputation gutted, your house condemned, and your silence sealed." Martha didn't flinch. "Then we'll need less than 10. At the other end of the station, David was already turning the interview room into a war room. Legal files were spread across the table. Marcus was plugged into the department's unsecured network, digging into databases the local officers didn't even know existed. "Pull every citation filed against properties in the Heritage District in the last 24 months, Elijah ordered. "I want names. Patterns. All of it." "They've been targeting more than just your mom," Marcus said, pulling up a string of notices. "Half these homes had reassessments double the market rate. And most of them sold within 6 months. Guess who bought them?" Elijah didn't need to guess. "Remington." Across the hallway, Chief Henderson sat behind his desk, visibly sweating. He looked at Elijah and Martha from behind his reading glasses, suddenly more like a man caught in a trap than one who'd helped build it. "Listen," Henderson said, voice quieter now. "I didn't know the extent of this. Remington's got friends in the judge's office. Your mom was booked, then someone called down and had her flagged as a flight risk. That's why she's still here. And now she's walking out," Elijah said flatly. "Even if I wanted to help, the paperwork's already on its way, transfer to state holding. Once she's out of my hands, I can't protect her." Elijah leaned forward. "Then let's make sure she doesn't leave your hands." They needed time and leverage. David had already filed a request for emergency review of the arrest, and Marcus was pulling surveillance footage backups from the gallery's internal cloud, bypassing the edited files. Then came the break. "I found something," Marcus called out. "A digital trace. Someone accessed the gallery's alarm system remotely at the exact minute the necklace disappeared." "From where?" Elijah asked. Marcus turned his laptop around. "Remington Properties corporate server." Elijah smiled. Not the kind of smile you wear in victory, but the kind a warrior wears before battle. It was beginning to unravel. And they had just begun. By the time the sun edged over Westwood County, the courthouse steps were lined with more than just reporters. There were neighbors holding signs of support. Former students of Martha's standing shoulder to shoulder. And silent onlookers, people who had sold their homes under mysterious pressure, watching as a different kind of trial took shape. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with a storm barely contained. Judge Reynolds, known for her sharp wit and zero tolerance for theatrics, presided over the emergency hearing. At the defense table, Martha sat calmly, her posture regal. Elijah sat directly behind her, silent, still, but visibly present. The quiet gravity of his presence shifted the air in the room. Victor Preston, the gallery owner, was first to fold. When asked under oath about the stolen necklace, he hesitated only a moment before cracking wide open. "It was never missing," he confessed. "It was locked in my office the whole time. Remington told me, said it was necessary. Said if we humiliated her, the public would force her to sell." The room erupted. Gasps. A few cries. Someone cursed. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel once. Then came the security footage Marcus had recovered, unedited, raw. It showed Emma Wilson watching helplessly as Preston slipped the necklace into his jacket pocket, right as James Turner was delivering his speech. The judge's jaw tightened. "Do you confirm this is the unaltered footage?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," Marcus answered from the back, holding up a signed affidavit from the gallery's own IT contractor. Remington didn't speak. He didn't blink. But the tension around his mouth told a story of its own. Then Martha stood. "I don't ask for sympathy," she said. Her voice didn't need a microphone. "I ask for justice, not just for me, but for every family that sold their home under a shadow of fear. For the children who no longer know what used to stand where those condos now sit. For the history they tried to erase with a lie." She looked directly at Remington. "You thought you could buy silence. But truth, real truth, isn't for sale." Judge Reynolds nodded slowly. "All charges against Mrs. Johnson are dismissed with prejudice. An inquiry into the conduct of those involved, including Mr. Remington and any complicit officials, is being referred to the State Attorney General. This court stands for justice. Not intimidation. Not greed." The gavel struck. Final. Outside, when the courthouse doors opened, Elijah stepped out first, his hand gently guiding his mother forward. The reporters swarmed, but Elijah raised one hand. The crowd quieted. "She's not just my mother," he said. "She's Westwood's mother. You all owe her a thanks. But more than that, you owe her protection, because communities like this can't survive unless they protect their elders and their stories." And beside him, Martha simply smiled. Not out of triumph, but peace. Because the house still stood. The truth had spoken. And Westwood had remembered who it belonged to.